With heavy hearts, the Bearcats dominate a weather-shortened game. Hello, everybody. Terry Bennett here on the Pilot Point Coaches Show. Brought to you by IRIC Real Estate and Chance Kirby. We'll talk a little bit more about them. But the Bearcats do get the win over Callisburg. The first home opening win for Pilot Point since 2020 against Plainview. I even forgot y'all played Plainview, to be honest with you. The win, though, gets Pilot Point to 25-2 all-time against Callisburg. And even though it was shortened, you were still able to see a dominant offensive and defensive effort. Josh Chumley just continues to be a beast for the Bearcats. And you got to love what the defense has done back-to-back weeks. Now, in saying that, I think this defense gets its toughest test of the year so far this week against Lindsay. And I know Lindsay is a 2A team, but man, they're going to have size. They're going to run the ball. They run the ball out of that spread veer, but they're throwing the ball a little bit more now than they have in the past as they've tried to step up that facet of their game, understanding the region they're in down there and how tough it is. And it's weird to say this, but in 2A Division II, you need to be able to throw the ball if you're going to beat the Munsters and the Collinsvilles and the Albanys of the world. You've got to be able to throw the ball, and Lindsay is trying to work that in more and more. So I think this is going to be a great test for Pilot Point. And, of course, a legend passed away last week, G.A. Moore, longtime Pilot Point, longtime Salina head coach. I still wonder, I've always been told that maybe his greatest coaching job was when he went to Sherman and turned an 0-10 team into a 6-4 team in 1 year. That's phenomenal, no matter what era of coaching it is. But I think the biggest thing that as I'm talking to coaches, and we're going to do something special here at L4 Media. We might do it around Thanksgiving because that would be apropos because, at times y'all play playoff games on Thanksgiving, which I still think they should do more of. Or we might put it out right at the state championship week. But I'm trying to talk to some coaches and former players. In fact, if you played for G.A. Moore and you would be willing to talk a few minutes about it, please reach out to me, Terry at s2ssport.com. This isn't anything extravagant. It's just we want to put something together nice because he's one of the reasons why I like talking 2A and 3A football. I was at Commerce, at A&M Commerce, now thankfully East Texas A&M, and I was doing Commerce radio. I was a stat guy, helped spot, and they would let me do sideline interviews and in-game interviews. Well, the very first one I ever did was G.A. Moore after losing to Commerce in the first round of the playoffs. And, and that could have been, he could have been gruff. He could have been, and I would have totally understood it. Someone that's been around the sport my whole life, I totally understand it. He was nothing but nice. He even gave me some tips to ask him some key questions that he wanted to talk about mistakes they'd made and how classy Commerce was as a program. And again, he's talking to the opposing team's radio. And so that just always stuck with me. And it's one of the reasons why I love, small ball football, as I like to call it, the real Friday Night Lights. And so we want to do something special for him. And I just think the impact he made on this level and all levels of high school football in Texas, one of the true cultural icons of Texas high school football, and he definitely will be missed personally and from afar. We do want to thank our sponsor for the Pilot Point Football Show each and every week, and that's Chance Kirby of IRIC Real Estate. If you're considering buying in the Lake Ray Roberts area, the dude you need to talk to is Chance Kirby. Over 25 years of experience. And man, if you're going to make a big financial decision, and most likely your biggest financial decision of your life, call the guy that has all the experience, knows all the ins and outs of the area, and that's Chance. So give him a call, 940-300-6900. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, it is the head coach of the Pilot Point Bearcats, Coach Chad Worrell, right here on the IRIC Real Estate Pilot Point Football Show. Here at L4 Media, we talk high school football, 4A, 3A, and 2A in Texas. We talk East Texas sports. We talk NFL, guy talk, movie, and booze. We also talk wrestling and so much more. And you can see it all on our YouTube channel at L4 Media Company. Like and subscribe. Terry Bennett back here on the Pilot Point Football Show. Now joined by the head coach of the Bearcats, Coach Chad Worrell. And Coach, you go to 2-0. You take care of Callisburg 35-7. Two great weeks offensively and defensively to start the season. What were your thoughts on the game?
Well, I mean, we were in a 2-hour rain delay or lightning delay before we got started. And then, we only got about 3 minutes in the third quarter before it got called for good. But, man, I was pleased, really, really pleased with our kids' effort and execution, especially coming out of you always were, coming out of a long delay like that to start the game. But our kids came out and played really well.
So when that happens, how does that work? It's non-district, so most of these games don't get picked back up. Some will, but is that just a situation where you and the other coach and the officials will kind of get together and try to decide, okay, how long are we going to wait this out, or do we try to come back the next day and all that?
Yeah, we definitely all got together, the officials and the coaches, and even during the first delay, we talked about how long we were probably wanting to stay and talked about the possibility of coming back Saturday. Saturdays are so hard now because, just the official shortage is a problem. And a lot of those officials are calling youth games or Pee Wee games on Saturdays. And so, getting officials back to come back on Saturdays is a challenge when you do that because, sometimes they have prior commitments. So we waited it out. I felt like it was probably the best case scenario for both of us because we got to get it in, got to get in at least a half and and didn't want to come back on Saturday for a non-district game.
Well, you bring up a good point. A lot of people, I know the diehard fans will know that there's been a shortage for a few years now, but a lot of other people don't realize more and more 2As and 3As are playing on Thursdays. And I actually see a day where almost it'll be majority 3A and 2As playing on Thursdays because of the official shortage.
Yeah, it's scary. I mean, it's troubling the trend we're in. I mean, we really try to recruit our seniors when they're done. I've done this for years, probably going back 8 or 10 years at least. Trying to get our seniors who are finished with their careers and who aren't going to go play college football to get into officiating. And man, it's just a tough time to do that. With the abuse that they take, and obviously the legislature and UIL's pushed for years, and coaches too, trying to educate our coaches on, taking care of officials as much as we can. Because, I mean, we can't do this without them. And the shortage down the line is, I mean, there's going to be a breaking point. Either we're going to have to start getting younger officials, recruited into doing that, which is a great gig for them. Not only being able to, be around that sport and being on the field with that, the sport that they love, but also, being able to make a little money. So, on the side doing that, but we need to get those younger guys and ladies into officiating so that we're in a better shape down the road, because right now it's kind of scary where that's headed.
All right, let's turn our attention to some good things, and let's get back onto the football. You take on Lindsay, 8-2A Division II team. Last year was 8-4. They've always been known for their size and their running, and they still run the ball. But this year, they're adding a little bit more of the passing into their offense.
Yeah, Coach Jones, I know talking to him throughout the year, that he was definitely, confident in their ability to throw the ball. I think they had a really good 7-on-7 season. And, man, number 7, Joseph Mannert, he throws the ball really well for him. Number 1, Lane Foster, he throws the ball really well for him. And he runs that offense to perfection. Number 7 is the receiver, their top receiver, and he's a deep threat. And as well as they run the ball, they're doing a great job of play action passing and throwing some of the short passing game stuff. And yeah, they're definitely two-dimensional and trying to be more balanced. And that's a problem in that offense.
This is one of the games where you will out-depth your opponent. How much does that play into a game like this, especially non-district? How far do you like to go into your bench in non-district?
I mean, we like to play everyone. And, we don't have a whole lot of straight two-way players, and we have some, but hopefully the depth helps us out, plays to our advantage. You never know until the game's over, but they've got a lot of two-way players, and we have a lot of two-way players too. But a lot of times they're starting on one side of the ball, and then they're spot playing on the other side, and trying to keep them as fresh as we can, to where when they're out there they feel like they can go 100%. And obviously it's more of an issue in non-district and early games when you're not quite in that shape that you're going to be in when you get to week 4 or 5. but we've been fortunate with the weather as well this year. You know, we're not playing games in 100-degree temperature up to this point, and that's helped us out as well.
Off the field, an icon in coaching in the state of Texas, if not the nation. G.A. Moore passed away. You were very close to him. What does his legacy and your connection to him mean to you?
And it's hard to put into words. I've been asked that question a lot, you know, in the last week, and it's just hard to put into words what he meant to not only me, but this, you know, this whole community and really this whole area. He touched so many lives, not only as a coach, you know, but just as a good man, a good Christian man that loved kids and loved the communities that he coached in, and you know, and he had such an effect on me personally, you know, getting into this profession and making me fall in love with the game at an early age. And I know he did for so many other people. You know, the Sonny Gibbs talked at his memorial on Tuesday and did a great job. Everyone did a great job, but Sonny played for him on his first Pilot Point team when he came here from Bryson. And, you know, you've got someone, I always think when I talk to Sonny or see Sonny, that, you know, you've got men who had played for him when in his second year of coaching, who still, you know, look up to him, and not only just for the coaching part of it. I mean, that speaks for itself, the wins, but he was so much more than that. And, you know, he's going to be missed by this community, missed by this whole area. So.
And the relationship between him and Pilot Point and Salina was so fascinating, because usually if you have a coach that's yo-yoing between, there could be some contention and stuff, yet somehow everybody still loved him. It's just one of those things where I remember a Salina fan saying, well, it's his time to go over to Pilot Point. He'll probably be back at some point. And that's very rare to have a man that could have two communities love him, even though they were big rivals.
Yeah, it's definitely you know, it was a unique situation. I don't know. We'll see that again. You know, with social media and everything playing into it now, you know, I don't know how that would have played out in the 70s and 60s and 70s and 80s if social media were as prominent as it is now. But man, it was a unique situation. But it also speaks just to the man he was, and you know, and his ability to relate to people and talk to people and care about people. And he's got, you know, two communities that admired him and loved him, and you know, felt like that, you know, that he was theirs. And so, and he was both communities. I mean, and I had the fortune, you know, I've coached in both communities. So I was in Salina for 5 years and here now in Pilot Point after growing up. So I can attest both ways. You know, I was part of both communities when he was part of it. But, you know, we came over in Brock, and I think 2019, I was at Brock, and we came to Pilot Point, and you know, he was in our locker room before the game, you know, came over to see me and, you know, just talk to our kids and visit with our coaches. I mean, he just loved being around it, and he loved people. And like I said, the impact it's hard to describe.
Here at L4 Media, we talk high school football, 4A, 3A, and 2A in Texas. We talk East Texas sports. We talk NFL, guy talk, movie and booze. We also talk wrestling and so much more. And you can see it all on our YouTube channel at L4 Media Company. Like and subscribe.
As always, I want to thank Coach Royal for joining us here on the Pilot Point Bearcat Football Show, brought to you by Chance Kirby and IRIC Real Estate. Also, I want to remind you, if you can't go to the games, you can check them out on YouTube at Pilot Point Bearcats fan page. I'll try to remember each week before or while we're at the games myself to share the link on our Sideline to Sideline Facebook page if you go through there to listen to this show, because they have a great broadcast. It's fun to watch Pilot Point football again, and the quality of their broadcast is spectacular. And I say it at the 3A, 4A level, really at any level of high school football broadcast, they have one of the best ones. So please check that out. And again, if you played for Coach Moore, coached with Coach Moore, and you'd like to be part of a special thing we're going to put together for later in the season, please reach out to me, Terry, at s2ssport.com. Also, if you just have any questions, thoughts, or comments for the show, or for our Sideline to Sideline 3A show that you can watch or hear each and every week, we're on YouTube at L4 Media Company, or you can find the audio version on almost all podcast platforms or our podcast page itself, s2sgrantandterry.com. We'd love to have some questions for Coach each and every week. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week. Until next week, this has been the IRIC Real Estate Pilot Point Football Show on L4 Radio.